Okay, so today I am talking to the ladies from Weekend Creative, and we have Ellie, right?
Hi.
Because you spell it L, and so I wanted to
I
make
know
sure
it
you.
confuses everyone.
Yeah, I'm sure I used it, but yeah, we have Ellie and Arabella. So thank you so much, ladies, for being here. I am so excited to talk to you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so let's start with an icebreaker question. So if you guys, and you can answer this as you guys together, or maybe it's your own. But what would be your absolute dream project? Or is there like a specific brand that you really want to work with someday?
We've always said Target.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've always said Target. Even one of their like collaborations would be really cool, or like
Mhm.
working with Target tag or something like that.
Mhm.
I don't know. We both love Target. And
Yeah.
I feel like
Target's
it's
a
just
love.
it's just it would be a great brand. I've only heard good things about working with them from
Mhm.
that. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've also said Squarespace as well. I think
Mhm.
because we use their platform for our website, but they always have really beautiful kind of imagery, like almost
On
like
their
of a
example
on
sites.
their example sites,
Yeah.
and like they're usually like fake businesses or whatever.
Mhm.
Sometimes they do like real people too, but it would
Mhm.
be super cool to like just collaborate with them because they're very artsy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be so fun. I can envision it already. Yeah, especially with Squarespace. I could see you guys
It's
like,
really fun.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, awesome. So let's talk about like how you guys started and everything. So tell me a bit about what you guys were doing before you started your business and just sort of like how that whole process was of deciding to start, and especially like deciding to start a business together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, we met in school.
Mhm.
So we were in college together, different majors, but we both took some photography classes. So I was in graphic design.
I was doing advertising, but I
Mhm.
did a minor in photography.
Mhm.
So we met in an intro to studio lighting class.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I was working for a local magazine. And so when the class was over, like I kind of brought her into that. And so we were both working there doing like fashion editorials and a lot of like social media content and stuff like that, and a whole bunch of other things too.
Yeah.
A small team, so like kind of doing everything.
Yeah.
And then from there, it wasn't really like we decided to start a business. Like it was never, we never really thought, we kind of joke about it, but it was never like,
it was
oh, we're
always a joke.
actually going to start a business.
Mhm.
But I was kind of feeling very stifled at the place I was working, and we wanted to just shoot just for fun,
Yeah.
like just for us, like without having any restrictions.
We always had like ideas, and like it just never felt like we were able to really like do our own thing and like really like given that independence to like do our own creative thing.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of was something that always had us thinking like, oh, it'd be so fun to do our own thing, like something on the side, like, you know, where we're the bosses and we can direct and decide the style, you know. It's always kind of like a style thing of like, oh, just wanting to break off from having to fulfill somebody else's.
To be told what to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we were doing a couple of shoots for fun, and then I was like, oh, what if we just emailed some local companies and asked if they would give us product to shoot in exchange for images? And like, it wasn't even, I didn't really think, oh, that will actually be a business. But I emailed It's Ice Cream on a whim. I don't know if you know them, but they're a local like San Francisco company, very well known in the Bay Area.
It's like ice cream sandwiches.
Yeah, they're ice cream cookie sandwiches. They're really good. But when I emailed him or the company, I never expected them to respond, but they did, and they were like, "Oh, actually, we need content. We want to pay you." And We didn't know anything.
Weird too,
it was
because
so
I'm
weird.
like, that doesn't usually happen.
Yeah, that they would just be on board.
They're like, oh yeah, we'll just give you free ice cream, that's it. But the idea that he like came around was like, oh, actually, like, we need all this stuff, like, let's give you money, let's pay you.
I mean, like, they paid us nothing.
Oh no.
But basically what they paid us covered the cost of the shoot, like what we had to rent and the props, because we didn't know how to do anything at that point. So everything was, we were making everything up as we went. And we did 2 shoots for them, and then that kind of made us realize, like, oh, maybe this could actually be a business. Maybe we can make money off this. But we still never thought, oh, this will be a full-time thing.
Yeah.
So at that point, we were like, oh, let's go to some craft fairs and like try to get other clients. So we kind of like, it was good because it gave us a deadline to come up with a name and make a website and stuff like
business
that.
cards, like get ourselves prepared to like be able to talk about who we are.
And then we kind of just on a whim became an LLC. We're like, well, I guess we might as well be legal if we're gonna take people's money. And then things just kind of snowballed from there. Everything just happened so naturally, and even getting our studio, we weren't really planning, and it just kind of fell into our lap. And it's grown so much since then, and we both quit our jobs. I quit like over a year ago. You quit about a year ago. A little under a year ago. So, but it was very gradual over time, and I think it took a long time for us to realize that this was actually going to be our full-time job. We didn't go into it with that intention.
It kind of all just happened, and I mean, very naturally. I mean, even working together, I think, because from that class we worked together like all semester.
We were partners all semester.
And we got to thank Madewell for basically connecting us. She was, at the time, I was really obsessed with Madewell, and she had a Madewell bag in the class, and she was sitting in front of me, and I was like, oh, hey, like, cute bag. And we became partners from there. But so I think just like working together before really being in business together was like probably really good for us.
It helped us define our roles, because we never had a discussion of like, what's your role, what's my role. We just naturally fit into those things because we already knew what our strengths were and what our interests were. And then it helped to know each other and know that we worked well together, and like we had different strengths. I think that's really important with a partner.
But with like a very similar vision or like style of things that we like, which I think that's also really important. And you know, if you're going to be in a business where like you're always going to be fighting over the, you know, direction or you know, control.
And that makes sense, because I think being creative, I don't know if you guys feel this, but I've always felt like a little bit selfish of like wanting to have control of everything. Like, I think that whenever I was in school doing group projects, sometimes they were fine, but sometimes you're like, oh, can I please just like do this by myself? Like, so I can make all the decisions.
Funny enough, it's like, I had that like same feeling or vibe, like when I'd work on something by myself, but I have like with Ellie, I feel like I'm kind of very lax, and like I trust in everything that like she does and like comes up with. So, and usually about like 100% of the time, like I like everything she does. So
but you contribute to it too. You're not just like passive.
But I think that's also something that's helped our dynamic too, is that there's one person that's kind of being like the leader in terms of like, you know, leading the way. So I feel like that's also super helpful, which is like interesting because, you know, even with my own personal work, like I'm very much like I'm in control of this, but like when there's a business and when you're with somebody else, like you have to like, there has to be this mutual respect.
There has to be give and take.
Yeah, that's so interesting and really cool that just like working on a school project together is where you like found out that that's how you like that you were a good fit. That's so cool. And so whenever you were first starting the business, and because like you said, it was like sort of gradual and just kind of like happened, which I feel like is so common with people who start businesses. It's like not really what they intended to do. It just sort of like happens all of a sudden, like, oh, I guess this is going to be a business. So whenever you did like realize, oh, we're actually making a business, like was that scary? Were there any like fears or like mindset blocks that you had to overcome with all of that?
That's a good question.
I think because it was gradual, like there have been a lot of fears, but those fears also were kind of gradual, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I think a big mindset block was like neither of us, I mean, we did take photography, like you have a photography minor and we took photography classes in college, but like we're mostly self-taught in product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so feeling a lot of imposter syndrome or like we've made up pretty much everything, even just the business side of things. Neither of us have any like business background or like we're never taught anything. And so we've had to kind of learn everything on our own.
Mm-hmm.
So I think feeling very much like we don't know what we're doing has been kind of scary. Quitting my job was pretty scary
Yeah.
because I quit before we were actually really paying ourselves.
Yeah.
So I quit and we didn't really pay. I didn't make any money for several months. And so, or like very much money, I guess. It was like very small. But I kind of knew that I had to do that to get us to the place that like where we could be paying ourselves.
Yeah.
So, and I definitely like, I remember like I went into that year thinking, okay, I'm going to quit my job because I had already gone part-time. So I was already like pulled back a little bit at my job from full-time. And I was like, okay, at the end of this year, I'm going to quit. And then I quit in March. So I just like couldn't do it anymore. But we had our studio at that point. We had just gotten our studio in January and I quit 3 months later. So we had major bills that we had to cover. Much higher. Even getting our studio was kind of scary because we did not have financials to show that we could pay rent. We had never once made enough money to like have covered rent. So it's like a miracle that we even got our space and that we've been fine. Somehow we've like made it. But
literally when we signed that lease, I was like, I don't know how we're gonna pay this. In my mind, I was like,
me too. I was like, this is the biggest check I've ever written. But it was like the kick in the pants that we needed to actually make money. And it made us actually, before we didn't really have to pursue clients. No. We didn't have to hustle. And because we had such minor bills. So then it became like, okay, now it's like serious. And it made us grow a lot more. But yeah, I mean, that was super scary. Both of those things were really scary.
Yeah.
For sure. That's definitely just like taking a leap. And I can imagine because that's such an investment too in your business to be like, okay, well now we have this lease and everything, like we're committed, you have to do it. So
one with a lease too comes so many other bills that you don't really think about, like now we have internet and we have security system and we have we had insurance before, but like more insurance and like, you know, all these things that you have PG&E, like and buy all this furniture and stuff and equipment. So it was, I think we didn't even realize how big of a undertaking it was at the time, which is probably good because maybe we wouldn't have done it. We also were intending to rent it with other people, and then I'm glad we didn't end up doing that. But that's also part of the reason why we were like, oh, we'll probably be okay because other people will be helping. If we had known it would be just us, I think it would have been
a lot more
scary.
But,
I'm glad so. It's nice.
Yeah. And that's so funny that you brought up like imposter syndrome and being worries about being self-taught, because I was just talking with somebody else about that the other day in a different interview, and she's a self-taught designer, and that was like one of her big things too. But we talked about, I mean, obviously like you guys went to school for other things, but like of course that experience adds to you know your skills and everything, but also I feel like with any business owner, I guess specifically creatives, but really anything, like you learn on the job no matter what you're doing. And I know for me especially, like I went to school for design, but I felt like I didn't even really learn like the bulk of what I needed to learn to run a business until I just started. And had no idea what I was doing.
The photography program at our school, like even though I minored in it, I you know, like the focus that they have at school too is very different. It's always
Yes.
kind of like fine art, like, oh, you're gonna go into the kind of gallery space and like
Mhm.
create like, you know, that kind of artwork versus
Mhm.
like realizing that there's other avenues
that are
for
more
photography
profitable.
that are more profitable. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like, it's a legitimate career, not, I mean, you can totally have a legitimate career as a gallery photographer
Mhm.
as well, but I think like I think it does a disservice to like not open up like the other, because there's so many other kinds of photography that you can do, and like that I think it's like you have to be like top of the top in that space to make a living as a gallery photographer
Mhm.
or a fine art photographer, whereas like there's other things that you can do that maybe you could be like better at or more profitable, so they don't really like teach you those other avenues,
show you or like let you explore the options. It's kind of just, I mean, like very,
even in graphic design it was very much like you're gonna work at an agency.
Yeah, I was about to say that's what I thought too.
You were never given like the skills that you would need to know to be a freelancer, to work for yourself, and that was never even presented as an option ever.
Yeah, I feel like at my school they brought in one person who ran their own design studio, and like they talked to us for 30 minutes and like that was it. But of course they can't like go into detail when all the stuff that you need to know about, like how do you communicate with clients, how do you set up contracts, like all that stuff that is like really crucial to know. And I'm sure with you guys it would have been, if you had like, well, maybe you could go to like a really specific school and like they could teach you some of those things, but generally with like doing product photography they're probably not going to teach you like how to price stuff for clients, especially like working with different ranges of like big brands versus small brands and stuff like that. Nobody's going to teach you that. You just kind of, I don't know, quote people what you assume you should quote and see what works and what doesn't.
A guessing game.
Kind
of still is sometimes. You're like trying to figure out the best way. It's tricky. For sure. But I mean, I think that's why the part of our educational side of us, I think like that's where that stems, right? Because we didn't get that education or like learn that stuff. We had to kind of learn it on the job, learn it on the go. So that's kind of our way of like giving back in a way.
Yeah. Telling people what you wish somebody would have told you.
Right. The space for people to ask questions or to learn from other people, just because like, you're not really taught a lot of things that you need to know, but also I think photography in general for a long time has been very competitive and very tight-lipped, and people don't want to share their process or their prices or the business side of things or anything really. And I think it's starting to change a little bit, but we're wanting to like facilitate that and show that like we can share what we're doing and it's not hurting our business, it's only helping us and it's helping other people too, and we're not like we're creating like competition for ourselves in a way, but we don't really see it that way because there's enough work to go around, and like it's,
why not help the entire industry?
It only helps the industry.
And the more people who have that approach, the better it's going to be for everybody.
Because if everyone charges higher, we're all going to get higher paying jobs versus some people undercutting and paying charging lower, and then so it actually helps people.
I love that. So is there anything that you wish you would have known? Maybe we've sort of already covered it, but anything that you wish you would have known before you started your business, or like big mistakes that you wish you could have avoided altogether?
I wish we knew more about contracts and what to include and how to protect ourselves. I think one thing that we know now that I wish we would have known then too is that like the client doesn't always know best. I think in the beginning we were very bending so to anything the client wanted, and like not now if a client comes to us and they want X amount and they want it by this date, I can tell them what's realistic and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't know how much time goes into things, or even how long it takes to order things or build things or whatever. And so I'm very much like, here's what we can do, here's what we can't do. If you really want that, it's gonna cost X amount. But in the beginning, I was very much like, oh, well, like whatever we can do to make the client happy, and I felt like they knew best, and that's just not true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, yeah, for sure. Exactly it.
Yeah.
It's so,
you have more control. You're the expert.
You have more control than you think you do.
And like really, like you're the only person who knows like what goes into it, like how long things take. So I mean, you know, you can counter with the clients, but,
and most of the time they're gonna be fine with it. And if they're not,
then they're
usually not a client you want. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like it goes with, people say the customer is always right, and that's definitely not true. And it's weird because like I was the same. I feel like in the early stages, you just want to make the client happy, and you just feel like you're supposed to do whatever they want. But then at some point, I feel like maybe it's just because you have some projects where you did that, you like did what the client wanted, and afterwards you're like, I really wish I would have told them that was a bad idea, and now I don't want to put it in my portfolio or something. And then you're like, okay, I need to start like shifting your mindset to be not just the pixel pusher, or like the executor, and just be the expert. But it's really hard to put your foot down with people, because you never, most of the time they are okay with it. Usually if they're a good client, they're like, oh, thank you for like telling me that. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. That's why I'm hiring you. Yeah.
I think also like with that, like valuing ourselves more too, in terms of like knowing when to say no to projects if it feels.
Yeah, being okay with turning down work.
Yeah.
I think that was really hard in the beginning. I never wanted to turn anything down, because I definitely had a scarcity mindset of like, we're never gonna get a job again, so we better take this one. And Arabella was always kind of more the one being like, I don't know, and then we would take it, and then it was always
shit.
Yeah, it's terrible. So yeah, I think being okay with
all of it kind of is connected, right? Like valuing yourself means that like you value yourself as a creative, and like your time and energy is really important, and I don't think that that should be sacrificed by a client being needy, or like a client asking for the world or whatever, you know.
Unless they paying
a lot of money.
A lot of money. Then it's like, okay, you figure out like what's worth it, like what amount is worth it to go through this amount of stress, and then weigh the pros and cons. Sometimes it's not worth it.
But again, like even just like we talked about this in the podcast actually, where like Anna was like, there's only so much advice you can get up front. You kind of sometimes just have to go through an experience to like learn,
and sometimes you have to go through it multiple times. We've done that where we've been like, okay, never again, and then we've done it again, and we're like, okay, now don't ever let me do that again.
And I bet that's really nice that you have somebody else there to like hold you accountable, because definitely I've gone through the same thing, but then it's like, it's just me who like knows what to look out for, and so then I do it again, and I'm like,
someone else being like, well, remember last time.
I bet that would be really nice to just I mean, that's where you just like have I don't know, also like a community where you can talk with people about it, but it would be nice to have someone who's there all the time, who knows like
who's been through it, like they went through it with you, so then they're like, well, I don't want to go through that again, so I know. And
so is there anything that you feel like you guys have done in your business that's like just made like a really big impact, or something that you're really proud of? I know you said like contracts are obviously something that you've like learned a lot about, but is there anything else that you feel like has just made a really big difference for you guys?
Sharing
sharing our our knowledge, building our community. I'm really proud of our community.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Like, we have almost 100 photographers in there, and I feel like for just starting, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And that's been a really fun place to see people like interacting and sharing, and people being excited for other people has been really cool. And I'm really proud that we stuck to our blog.
Yeah.
Because it's been in the fall, it'll be 3 years.
Yeah.
In October, whenever we started it, November, I don't know.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, and I've never stuck to anything that long.
No. Especially a blog.
Yeah. So that's been really cool that we've been consistent, and there's been very few weeks that we've not posted something. Usually we're doing 2 a week. Now we're doing like half of it in our community and half of it is still on our site. So, but we have a lot of really good content that goes back really far. And so I'm proud of that. I think another thing too that I'm proud of that we kind of did in the beginning too was, like, I read a book called Profit First, and it really helped us like set up our finances so that we weren't paying ourselves very much, but we were still paying ourselves a little bit. And the whole like premise of his book is like that people do accounting backwards, and so you kind of you like pay all the bills and do all of that first, and then at the end of that you take your profit. But what happens is that most business owners or entrepreneurs then put all of the money into the business, and they never really end up paying themselves. And then the other problem is that like the more your business grows, the more expenses you have. So you keep thinking, okay, well, once I start making more money, then I'll pay myself. But you never do, because you just keep putting more and more money into the business. And so his whole thought is like, take your profit first, and like make sure you set money aside from every sale or every job that you have, and pay yourself. And it could be a small percentage when you're starting, and then that percentage will grow as your business grows. And I think, it's good for avoiding burnout. Like, burnout is real, and if you're not seeing any reward from all the work that you're putting in, then you're going to burn out more quickly. And he studied a lot of small businesses and startups and found that was a lot of times the reason that they were failing, was because they're
prioritizing the business and like making that grow versus like, oh, well then what's the point of the business in the first place, right? If you're not rewarding yourself, or like for all the work that you've done.
And it's really helped us to like, I put money aside for rent, so I feel we have a few months of rent saved up at all times, so that things like when Corona hit, we knew that we could pay rent and pay all our bills for a few months and continue to pay ourselves, which was very relieving at that time. You set money aside for taxes so that you're never blindsided by that. All these things that have been really helpful for us. And I think a lot of small businesses, money is like very stressful, and it's like a burden on the business. And for us, I am really proud that like we've never, like, of course, like we do get stressed, or there are times where it's like, are we ever going to get a job again? I don't know.
But I think it's like we have a healthier relationship
with money. Yeah. And we've been able to get to the point where like I'm now making like what I was making at my full-time job, and we're, taking care of ourselves, and we're not like driving ourselves into the ground. So I do feel proud about that, because I think that takes a long time for a lot of small business owners to learn. And I'm really thankful that we learned that at the beginning, and we've been able to kind of like implement keep that mindset. Yeah. I think it's made a huge difference in just like the stress of owning a business. There's enough other things to stress about that we need to also be stressed about money.
It's such that's stuff that I've still been like figuring out too. And I think that I read your blog post actually about the Profit First stuff. And I'd heard about that book before.
It's so good. If you haven't read it, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It will change your mind about money and
I feel like I don't like money. I like money, but I don't like dealing with money and like having to make decisions about it and like be organized with it. And so and that's just another thing that like how in the world are you supposed to figure out how to like do all that stuff whenever you're just starting? Like,
Yeah.
who's telling you like what is expected or whatever? It can be so confusing, especially with taxes. I feel like you can read like a million websites and like it's still confusing exactly what you're supposed to do. Yeah, I just now started using an app. I just opened, I've been running my business for 4 years. I didn't open a separate bank account until like beginning of this year. But in my defense, I feel like one, I was making like no money the first couple of years. So it's like, why would I?
Too. So like technically you can kind of
I still recommend having a separate account, but yeah,
I do too.
It's more like legal stuff you have to do.
Yeah, but it was just, it was funny, and I feel like it was also because I was still, maybe it's because I wasn't making a ton of money yet that I was like, oh, I don't need to get a different bank account for it. But then that was also sort of just like maybe imposter syndrome or something, like, oh, like it's just a little side business or something, like it's not a full thing. I don't need to open
I've always been with my own personal stuff. I never opened like a separate thing or anything. And then now that I have this, I'm like, well, I don't really need to.
Yeah.
But I feel that, I mean, but it's just, it's definitely, I'm sure more.
It just helps you
organize.
Stay way more organized. Yeah. And then just to have peace of mind too, that like, if you did get audited, it'd be so much easier to like show everything and prove everything than to have to like try to separate it out from your personal. It's going to get complicated. So.
Yeah. I just started using this, app. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, and I only just started using it, so I can't say that it's like perfect or anything yet. But it's called Catch, and it's for, I think it's like specifically for freelancers kind of, but it sort of does like, because with the Profit First, they tell you to like have a bunch of different like accounts so you can keep everything separate, right? So I started using this because I was like, oh, I don't want to have to go through and like separate all that stuff and like do the math every month. But it's cool because you can hook it up with your bank account, and then it like, you can set a percentage. It'll estimate based on where you live how much you should reserve for taxes. But then you can set a percentage for like emergency fund and then healthcare, or like you can set different like,
that's cool.
That's pretty cool.
Buckets almost to like put stuff in, and then you can sync it so that any income that comes in, it automatically puts the different percentages away in different buckets.
That's pretty cool.
But that's the only reason that now I feel more organized. It's because I had to like find something to do that for me, because I don't know.
It is hard. I know. I kind of set aside like, I mean, it really doesn't take that long once you start doing it and once you have the account set up.
Yeah.
But once a week, I just kind of go through like whatever came in that week. Because if I do it once a month, it just gets like, I don't know. I don't want to have to like go through everything so much. Yeah. So just once a week, it takes maybe like 20 minutes, and I just add up everything that came in, and then I divide it by percentages and just transfer the money. And I think for me, like, I kind of need to like see it visually, so it helps me a lot. And then, when money leaves that account, I can see it, and just being able to like look at it at a glance. Yeah, if it was all in the same for me, I think that'd be like more like challenging. But if there's an app that's like telling you what you have, then that's great too. Yeah. But yeah, it's once you like get into a rhythm, it doesn't take too long. It's like then you have to stay on top of it and make sure you're continuing to do it. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yeah. So let's switch. Enough money. So I feel like you have like such a recognizable style. I feel like if I'm scrolling through Instagram and I like see a post that's yours, I instantly know that it's yours. And you're welcome. And I feel like that can be such a difficult thing, especially when creatives are starting out, is like finding their style and becoming like memorable. So yeah, what was that like for you guys? I know you said that you sort of just naturally have like similar styles, but yeah, what's that been like?
Not because I feel like this year was the year that we realized how to talk about our style, or like something clicked where we're like, oh, that's our style. Like we've always been drawn to like bright colors and like, you know, like fun shadows and like this like style, but like I think for us it clicked this year how to describe it, and we're like, oh, this is like, it's that very bright like weekend like mood where you're outside and it's like super bright, so you've got, you know, all your fun shadows and like I don't know, it just, and then we like have all these like graphic design elements, which I think comes from even like your background. And
we use graphic design a lot and as like inspiration and include a lot of graphical elements. But I think it developed over time. Like we knew what we liked, but it took us a while to like figure out how we were gonna do that. And that just came from working for clients and doing a lot of test shoots and fun shoots on our own, separate from client work. And then kind of having words to like give to it came later. And I don't know. I think there's a Ira Glass quote that I was just talking about with the guy I was on Adobe Live with last week. Was it last week? Yeah. Whenever it was. And because somebody was asking him, he's a graphic designer, and someone was asking him about like developing your style and stuff. And so we were talking about that. Like this quote basically talks about how like when you're first starting out, you have good taste, but your skills or like how you do things like isn't there yet. So you're creating all this work and you hate it because you have good taste and you know what it should look like, but you don't have the ability to, or the experience to be able to get it there. And so the way to like get there is to just keep making more and more work, like constantly be making it work and constantly be testing and constantly be trying out new things and experimenting. And then that's how you get to the point where your abilities and your taste will match. And it took us a long time to get there. I think like I look back at most of our early work and there's very little of it that I actually like.
I think that's definitely a big thing, right? It's like going back to the imposter syndrome, kind of like knowing what you like and knowing the level of work that you want to be producing, but not having all the skills and all of the knowledge to execute it. That's always good.
And that's, again, going back to our education, like that's part of why we share behind the scenes and share how we make things or how we do certain things or our setups, because we learned all of that on our own just by doing and doing and doing. And other people are going to have to learn that for themselves too, but we can give them like a little piece of the puzzle and help them make one little thing easier, and that will like only help them like grow faster. Because it took us a while to like, and I feel like we're still learning and evolving and changing and growing. I don't feel like we know everything, and we're always, asking other people how they did things or trying to figure out like easier ways to do things or better ways to do things. And there's still like a lot we have to learn. So
but I think our style like continues to evolve in ways, but I think it's just getting more refined and the longer we do work,
And do you feel like your style is that like what drives clients to you now? Do you feel like that's the thing that clients really know you for?
Yeah, for sure. Especially like there's a couple specific things on our site that most clients will reference. So like certain shoots that we've done that like most clients will be like, oh, I won't work like this. And so, I think that's definitely like driving clients. I think that's why it's really important to only put out the work that you want to be hired for. So we're always going through and editing our website and taking things down and putting up new work. And when we do shoots just for fun, we think that's really important to like be creating work just for yourself. A lot of times those are the shoots that clients will reference when they reach out. and to be able to like, play around, and it's super important. So, but only put out those images that you feel are like you and what you want to be hired for. You can always have things on the side that you can send people if jobs come your way that you want to take just for the cash, and they want to see like corporate headshots or whatever. If you wanted to do that, you could have like a separate thing. For us, we don't really, but I think that's really important. And just like very like editing yourself. And our professor in college would always say your portfolio is only as strong as your weakest piece. So just making sure you're like continually, like, even if you only have a few projects on your site, but they're all amazing, that's better than having tons and tons of work, but you can't tell like what you actually do. And it's, there's a lot of like mediocre things mixed in there, or it's confusing to people. Having like a very strong, like very edited portfolio is really important. And posting on social, like only posting the things that you would want to do again to attract clients.
Totally.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like so many young freelancers just kind of feel like they have to show every single piece of work that they've ever done. And it just attracts more of the same stuff. And that's what I tell a lot of designers that as well, that like do a personal project. And for me, it's been the same, where like fake projects that I've done, those always get the most attention, and it's really funny. And a lot of times people don't even like realize that it's fake, and they don't care that it's fake either. They just want to see that you did good work. And I feel like whenever I've done personal projects, it tends to be some of my best work, because it's like that's the stuff that you're able to create with no limitations, and like the client isn't guiding you and like having you change things that you wouldn't do. It gets to be just like the purest form of like whatever it is that you're wanting to create. And that's always what people like.
Because it's unique, it's different, and it's not like you're like there's no limitations.
I lost my place in the questions. Because I'm like so into everything we've been talking about. Okay, I wanted to go back to like money and pricing stuff too, because I had forgotten to ask this earlier. Because of course, like figuring out pricing yourself, that can be really tough. And so what have you learned? I know you said like your first project that you had, the guy paid like nothing. And of course that happens in the early days, but like, how have you figured out? And of course, I mean, I'm coming from a design standpoint, and pricing branding or like website projects, I'm sure is very different from pricing photo shoots. There's so much more that goes into doing a photo shoot with like props and everything. So
there's so many components, and I think that's probably one of the things that we learned the most is like, I think in the beginning we were only really thinking about charging for just the photography itself, and not really taking into account all the other parts of the shoot that we're doing,
that they would have had to hire someone else for. But we're doing it, and so we should get compensated for.
Like Ellie's art directing, producing, sourcing props, making stuff. Like, then we're shooting, we've got our experience, our lighting, all of like, our studio, our bills. Like it's very much like a, when you're pricing, I think in the beginning we didn't take into account all those things at first. And I think later on we're like, oh no, we're running a business here. We need to be compensated in a way where we're like, it's taking into account all those things.
Yeah. I think one thing that was really good for us was setting a minimum. So we had a friend who, she's a commercial photographer too, and I remember her telling us, this was like pretty early on, she was like, I just had to set a minimum for myself, and it's $1,000, and like I'm not going to take anything under $1,000, which I'm sure her minimum's much higher now. But I remember being like, that's crazy. That means we're going to turn down everybody. Like, what? And so we were like, okay, well, I guess let's try it. So we did, and like our business grew. And then, now our minimum is much, much higher than that. We're kind of always raising it. But that's kind of been really good for us as far as like setting a bar where we know right off the bat who to turn away and who to like move forward in conversation with. And, we'll be flexible depending on the project. If it's like going to be a very like really amazing project that we're like super excited about, we would be flexible to an extent. But yeah, I think like that's been really helpful for us as far as pricing goes. And it's really hard. We do a lot of coaching calls and we get a lot of messages from people asking what they should charge. And it's just so hard because like we don't know your experience. We don't know the kind of clients you're working with. We don't know like really anything about you. And so, and like we're still figuring it out ourselves, and it's just been hard. But I think that's like my biggest piece of advice is to like set a minimum and really stick to it and hold yourself to it and always be raising it. And then price, like start with time, but then add value on top of that. Because if you're just charging hourly or you're just charging based off like how many days it's going to take you to complete a project, you're not thinking about like the value that your services are bringing to this company, where this company could not sell their products without your services. And so like the more experience that you have, the more value you're going to bring to this company, and the more ways they're going to use these images, the more value it's going to bring them. So really taking that all into account. How big is their audience?
Yes.
What does their product cost? Like all those things, because and you want to start with time to make sure your time is covered, but always add value on top of it, because like your services are valuable and you want clients that see it that way. And the clients that nickel and dime and try to like talk you down in a way that's not respectful, those are always nightmare clients. Every single client that has
tried to bargain,
been bargaining, or like cheap, has been a nightmare. Every single one. So just take that as a red flag right off the bat and make sure it's really worth it, and be like, just say no, and it's okay. And like, we've had clients where like we've had big companies that we've turned down because we did not feel like what they were going to pay us was worth it. And
considering how big they are, the audience that they would be,
and the amount of things
images
that they wanted. Because I always counter with like, okay, well, here's what we can do within your budget. Here's the amount of work we can do for that. But if you want that amount of work, this is what it will cost. So that they have options and they can see what it should actually cost. Instead of just being like, oh, that's too low. Like we can't do that. Unless it's like way, way below our minimum. But and we've turned down clients that probably would have been great for us to have their name in our site, but it wasn't going to be worth it. And we felt like they were devaluing us.
Yeah, that's always tough, but that's amazing that you've gotten to a point where like you're confident enough to do that, because I'm sure that they're probably banking on less experienced people who are just going to take, give them whatever they want for however much they want to pay.
And that's why it's so important to be educated. I know it's hard because we can't give like, here's exactly what you should charge, and every project is different. But at least to like kind of be like, I don't know. So like be learning and trying to figure out like what you should charge so that you aren't like, taking a hit or taking jobs that should be paid.
Yeah.
Do you guys, I'm sure you guys have had clients where, kind of like you were talking about earlier, how even you guys going into it didn't think about like all the stuff that goes into doing a photo shoot. And so do you guys have clients who come along who it's like they don't understand like how much goes into it? Or I'm sure you also have people who just assume, like you said, normally they would be hiring someone separately to do certain things, and then like do they just assume like, oh, you're going to do this too, and that should be included in the price? You know what I mean? Where clients just like don't get it.
I mean, the majority of our jobs we're doing all those things. So when I price it out, I price out all of those different things because there's really not any jobs we take on that we don't do some art direction, even if sometimes the client is more involved or less involved, but we're still always involved in that process. And yeah, so most of our jobs we're kind of doing all those things. So I just price it out from the beginning. But yeah, I mean, we get clients all the time. They have no idea what things cost. Like a big example is models. So models in the Bay Area are very expensive, even more so than like LA or other areas. And so clients all the time will be like, oh, we want models for this shoot. And I'm like, okay, well, here's what it'll cost. And they have like a major sticker shock. And, you know, I've had clients be like, oh, we can't work with you because of that cost. And I'm like, well, okay, it's not our, like, we have no control over, I can negotiate with the agencies, but I can only, you know, get them down so far. So, and I will negotiate, but it, you know, I can only do so much. So, that's like a big one for us. And that means we don't end up working with models very often, which is fine. And we used to be like, oh, we'll just hire our friends to work for us and like, that'll save you money, like telling our clients that will save you money. And then it just has like, our friends have been great, but it's just been like, you know, schedules are harder to coordinate because these people have jobs and they're not professional. So a lot of times like it's more difficult or it takes longer or whatever. And I also feel like it's not fair. Like these companies are using these people to market their services or their products or whatever it is, and they're making money off them. They should make what the agency rates are, you know? So anyway, so we don't do that really anymore. But that's a big one. Licensing is huge. Clients never, bigger companies understand licensing. Small companies don't understand licensing, and it's always a conversation I have to walk them through and explain.
There's a lot of educating.
It's like, well, actually you don't own the photos, and like under US law, this is what this means, and like, you know, this is why we charge a fee. And it's hard though because there's no standard. There's no standard licensing fee. There's calculators online, but they're all different, and there's no like, this is what every photographer charges for an audience this size and, you know, these things. And so it's hard because I don't have a lot of like things backing me up on those kinds of prices. But yeah, so that's been challenging. Licensing is like huge, but it's really important because otherwise your photos end up on Forbes with no credit and no extra compensation. And so we've been through that, and you know, your photos everywhere, and you should have made so much more because of how they're being used.
Yeah, my sister-in-law is a photographer. She doesn't do like product photography. She does like, you know, wedding photos, family photos, newborn babies and stuff. And I've talked with her about licensing stuff before because it's different, I guess, a bit for her because she is doing it on like a smaller scale. Like if she photos a family and then they, you know, go print her photos or something, it's a little bit different. But like for you guys, if a brand, you know, uses your photos on their marketing and like advertisements and stuff that go everywhere, that's we have
a client that we did not really end on.
We had a falling out
in the best terms. They turned insane, psycho. So like last night she sent a screenshot of them. They're using our photos in their like printed like brochures that come with their products when people purchase them. And I was like, I'm pretty sure we did not give them print rights. So I just looked at our contract and we didn't give them print rights. So now I'm like, should I like reach out to them? So awkward because like I know it's gonna be a battle and I know they're gonna be super rude and like make me angry. But like that also makes me angry because like, you know, they are using our photos in a way that like they should be paying to use them in that way. So now we have to figure out like what we're gonna do. But
it is such a difficult thing to like explain to people why it's wrong, and that like what you created is art and they're just like putting it on something where they're making money from it. Yeah.
That's what I tell them is like, it's the more eyes that see the photos, the more value they have. So if you're a small company and you're only going to use it on your organic social, the licensing fee is going to be super low. But if you're huge and you have, 1 million, 10 million Instagram followers, and you're going to be running paid ads on this, and you're going to be making thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars off these photos, we're going to charge more because like the value of the photos has increased now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all based off of value, and like, yeah, if you want to use them for more things, you pay more. Like that's it's just, to me it's like common sense, but I understand why people don't understand that. And it's not even, it's like illegal. It's in the US, like that's legally how it is. Like whoever takes the photo owns the copyright, no matter if like somebody else paid them to do it, unless it's specifically stated in the contract that they are giving up full rights to those images. But it's like, it's legally, those images belong to us, and it's our intellectual property. So, and we're giving it to you, but it comes at a cost depending on how you're going to be using it. So
yeah, I wonder if in any way social media has like made it worse in the fact that like people can just repost and like reshare people's stuff. Like I had a thing where I had created a graphic. It was just like, I don't know, I was bored one day and I just like made this geometric design and I posted it on Instagram, and it was like over a year later, somebody sent me a clothing company had put it on a t-shirt and was selling it. And it was crazy because it wasn't even like they tried to like alter it. The colors were the same. The only difference was it was flipped upside down. And so it was just like so weird. And that's where I was like talking to my husband about it. And of course he was like, this is crazy. He's like, but you put it on Instagram. So like, what can you do? I don't know. That's just where it like, it gets messy because it's like people can reshare that, people can access it. However, I knew that like for them to put it on a t-shirt, to like and to be able to like blow it up that big, it would have been pixelated, so they had to recreate it, in like Illustrator or something to make it a vector so that it was print. Anyways, but yeah, it was crazy. Luckily it turned out okay because I reached out to them and everything, and they said that they didn't know it was stolen, that they were using a third-party vendor who would like pitch design ideas for shirts. And so that's who pitched it to them, and then they picked it. So they had no idea that it came from somewhere else, but they paid me what I asked for, and they agreed to like stop printing the shirts and everything. So that was good. Like it was actually, but it was still just kind of crazy that like there's some third party vendor out there who I'm sure it's not like I'm the only one they did that with. They're probably pitching endless designs stolen from who knows who. But it was funny. And that's where I told my husband's dad, I was talking to him about it, and he was like, well, that's why I just wouldn't post any work that like a client hasn't already paid for. I wouldn't post anything. And I was like, but then how am I supposed to get work?
There's pros and cons, and I think at the end of the day, it's like people are going to. You hope that they tag you so that you can find them and tell them to take it down if needed. And we don't always tell people to take our stuff down. If it's a brand, for sure, because it's like, well, you can pay us to create content for you. If it was licensed to a client and like we have rights and the client has rights, like then we have to tell them to take it down. But other than that, I guess we're kind of flexible, but you have to think like there's so many people posting things that aren't tagging, and there's no way we're gonna see it.
And that's where I feel like the community of like creatives and freelancers, that's been like the key. I feel like lots of people look out for each other, and like anytime that something like that has happened where someone's reposted something of mine or like copied something of mine, I've never found it on my own. It's always been someone else recognized it and then messaged me or sent it to me. And like how great is that like people just kind of like keep an eye out. And you know, let people know if something like that's happening.
Yeah, for sure.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Crazy world.
Okay, so last question is, what is one piece of advice that you would give to young photographers or freelancers? And this can be such a difficult question to answer. But yeah, if you have like one thing.
It's funny because I feel like most of the advice that people give is like very cliche, but it's also very like people say it for a reason.
Yeah.
Like just start.
Yeah.
It's like the big one, you know, where it's like,
don't wait for a perfect opportunity.
Yes.
Just start, because you'll never start.
Yeah.
But it's true. You never will.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Because the more that you like mull over all the little details and feel like, you know, like you have to get all these things in line or in order for things to be perfect, like that is no, like, you know, you just need to just start it, do it, whatever it is, and like, you know, just go with it. And I think that's, that was one of the things for us, I think.
Yeah.
Even though it was natural, it was, I mean, we still did it, like we still went through all the emotions and you know, but
I think, I mean, like we said, never work without a contract, and just protect yourself, and remember that like you're the expert, not the client, and it's okay to tell them what you can and can't do. It's okay to tell them like no, and to
turn them away.
It's okay to turn down work, and just make sure that you are like taking care of yourself and paying yourself, and taking care of like your mental health and all of that, because it can be crazy and stressful and overwhelming. And if you don't have community and you don't have people to like check in with you, or you're not like taking time away and taking and like making sure you're compensating yourself, like you're gonna burn out, and like it can be super hard. So making sure you have all those things in place. And then, like you're doing this for you because like you love this work and you want to be doing it. So, you're going to probably have to take on projects you don't want to do, but like make sure that you are also taking on like leaving space in your schedule for the work that you actually love. And that means turning people away sometimes, but that like leaves it open for people that you actually want to be working with, or fun projects that will bring you those clients that you actually want to be working with.
In our class, that's the class that we met, one of our teachers, or our teacher, she had like this concept that was like something that we always like stood by. And it was basically like her approach to any project. There are 3 things, and you have to have 2 out of the 3. So like you either love the project, you love the client, or the money is
you
good.
Make a lot of money.
Make a lot of money, right? So at least 2 things out of that. Otherwise, like, don't take it.
Yeah. If it's only money,
no,
not worth it.
It's gonna be a shit client, bad project.
If you only love the client, it's not that much money, and you don't love the project, not worth it.
Yeah.
If you love the project, hate the client, and you're not making money, not worth it. So having 2 of those things is really important.
All 3 would be nice, but
all 3 are nice, but how often does that actually happen?
I love that.
Realistic.
I love that. I feel like that should be like a poster or like something that's like hung above your desk. Yeah, that would be a super cool print.
Yeah, thanks, Sandy.
We'll give some of the rights to Sandy. Yeah, like commission.
Sandy like sees it and sues us. No.
But
yeah, no, I think that's all great advice. I feel like I had like something in my head to like make a point on one of them, and now I can't remember what it was, because now I'm thinking about that poster and how good it would be.
Yes, good idea.
Yeah, well, thank you guys so much for doing this. I'm so excited for people to listen to all your wisdom, and just thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It was so great to talk with you.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.